Hello, this is Katie. Welcome back to my channel. This card is going to be using one of my new Fawn sets, Keep on Swimming. I had a vote over on Instagram between On the Beach and this one won. So I'm showing you here that I pre-stamped everything, and then I'm going to color it in. And I was just showing you that the fishbowl was pretty easy to stamp. It's just the fishbowl, and then you can stamp in the top of the water and the sand line. It's very easy to do. I didn't use my stamping platform or anything like that. And then I was showing you a couple sheets that I'll be using from Fawn Spring Fling, my 6x6 paper pad. So I'm using some Copics. This is E29 to color in the images. So I'm just kind of shading where I think shading would be on the table. And then E18. And I really like how this color combo turns out. It just looks kind of like cherry antique-y wood to me. So I'm glad I chose those colors. And then E09 for the lightest color. And it just came out a really cool, I don't know what I imagine cherry wood would look like. And then I blend a little bit darker on the feet. I did go out of the lines there, and I fixed that with my colorless blender. So I'm going back with E29 along the bottom to blend a little darker at the feet, and then going in with my mid color to bring that up a little bit. And then finishing it off with E09 again to blend all of it out. And then I grab my colorless blender to kind of just get that smudge out, because I'm going to use the die cut and you'd be able to see that. So it works pretty well to kind of just push off and kind of erase any outlying. So I'm going to color in my little puffer fish. I call it my little potato fish. In my release haul video, I talked about it. There was a puffer fish at a restaurant that I loved, and he looked just like this, but he was kind of like gray. It was like a weird gray brown, so I went with warm grays, and these are the grays that I have. So I end up touching my W1 to my W5 and blending it out a little bit. So I'm just touching the lighter to the darker to pick up some of the darker color to kind of essentially create like a W3 that I don't own. So that is a tip if you did not know that with your Copics. It kind of works to give me that middle color that I don't really have, to blend him out. And then I'm using some sea grays for the cat. The C9 is a little darker along the lines. I didn't want to lose the original lines of the cat, but I end up blending it out okay with C7 and then C5, and you can take C5 or even C3 and go over those darker ones, and the alcohol can kind of pick up the too dark areas that you did and make them lighter, so it is fixable. But I just spend a lot of time blending C5 throughout to make it look more realistic. And I'm noticing more and more that I may need to start buying refills for some more markers. I only bought like 6 refills so far in the past, you know, and that was only a few months ago, but I've had my Copics for 10 years. I've been collecting them, so it's time to probably get some refills on some of these, but I'd say they lasted a pretty long time for as often as I use them. So then for the water, I'm using B01 and B00. So I'm just kind of lining above the sand and around the edges, and then B00 to fill it in, which I might also need a refill for. I don't recall using B00 too often, so I'm not sure why. But then I just start moving a little bit slower. I realize this is sped up ×2, but I just moved a little bit slower to kind of let the ink flow out of it. And then I'm going to use E35 for the sand, and then E34, but then I don't finish, and I grab E33, see if it's a little bit lighter. I don't know, maybe my eyeballs were off, but it has a little bit of shading. And then for the glass itself, just to offset it, I put in a little bit of BOOO, and then I use my colorless blender to kind of blend that out, just to give it a glass look so it wasn't completely white. Then I'm going to zoom out of my coloring, set the dies on top, and then snap my fingers and they will be cut out. So that was magical. And I'm going to glue the little potato fish, because that is his name. I named it Potato Fish. I don't know where he is now. He might be in the other restaurant. It did move around a little bit, so I had to stop touching it because I was using that glue. I didn't feel like unclogging my glossy accents. So I set those aside. That's my card base, and then I'm going to be cutting out a frame. This is the scalloped frames, stitched scalloped frames from Fawn. And then I pair it with stitched rectangles from Little Inker Designs. So the sizes are not quite, they don't quite fit within each other, but it works out. I have this problem I run into every now and then. I see an idea and I want to do it. I just don't have the right dies for it. So I want you guys to know that this is for somebody who owns a lot of crafting crap. I still run into stuff like this. So you work with what you have. So the scallops kind of barely poke out from my scene. You'll see what I do in the end. But that's just how it is. And I still think it looked good. So we're using the yellow flower pattern from Spring Fling as kind of wallpaper. And I'm cutting the same stitched rectangle out of just craft cardstock. And then I do put my Big Shot away, but I bring it back out. I'm not sure if I show you. But I'm using my wood grain backdrop, my super old yellow stamp from forever ago. I use this when I want to create floor patterns. I just stamp a light brown, this soft brown by Hero Arts ink pad you see to the left. I just stamp it on craft, and then I have wood flooring or a wood wall panel or whatever. So I'm using my platform just to make this a little bit easier. And I had some stuff off to the right. That's why I had to move it to ink it up so that it would be flat. Otherwise I would have kept that in the view. And then I stamp it down, and it's a very large stamp and it's stuck to the platform. So there's my flooring. So what I decide to do is I want these to be flush. I don't want to have one higher than the other. So what I do is I set these down and I get a white piece of the same as my base. So I think I pause and I run that through. So then I have a white rectangle. So then I take the wood flooring and I chop that off where it's going to end. And then I use my Gina K dot runner just because it was easy to grab until I run out. So I end up using my tape runner in a minute. So I stick that down to the bottom to be the floor. And then I'm going to measure, which actually ends up being exactly 2.5 inches. I was very impressed with myself because I was guessing. So then I cut 2.5. So I measured the white space that was left, and then I trimmed the wallpaper. And now I'm going to stick this down. My little dot runner ran out of dots. And so I use my tape runner, give it a lot of adhesive because I want this to stick down. And then I create my wallpaper flush to the floor panel, which looks a lot better than if I had layered it. So here's where you can see my scallop frame is not quite big enough, and there were no two sizes that would have fit how I wanted it to other than these ones. So I am running tape runner around the edges. I am leaving all of this in the video. I didn't hit pause or anything so that you can see what happens when you do something like this. And you realize that the scallops on the right side are barely poking out and the ones on the left are much more prominent. So I am not that frustrated, honestly. I'm just like, whatever, I'll cut a new one if I need to. I just didn't want to waste the paper. So I peeled that off as carefully as I could. And now I'm spending a long time. It's not very sticky at all because the sticky is on the other piece. I spend a little bit of time just trying to get it flat again, and I end up using my bone folder, which helped. I get it flat. I move a little bit slower this time, and I centered it. I think I might have stood up, I don't remember. And I centered it how it was supposed to be centered the first time. So that worked out just fine. And the ripped paper was behind all that, so you can't even see it. So then I am going to grab my wide foam tape. I was having a bit of a catastrophe over there, so that took me a minute. And I am just I'm going to lift this up off of the card because that's how I want it to look. So I am trimming this foam tape to fit to support the whole back of that panel, and then peel all of those off and stick that down, preferably centered without dirt on the card. So then the table I want to stick down to the card. This card is based off of a card that Elise made for Lawn Fawn with this set. Elise Constable, I believe. So I've kind of just placing where I want this to go. I changed up some of it a little bit and the sentiment as well. And you'll see I do the sentiment how I probably normally wouldn't do a sentiment, but I kept it pretty simple. You may or may not agree with what I do with the sentiment, but I wasn't, it's getting very late and I wasn't ready to be super detailed about it. And so, but I still liked how it turned out. So I stuck the table down, but then I'm lifting up the fish tank and the fish so they're on the same level. I need to add a little bit of foam tape to his tail so he's supported. And then I'm just showing you again how I cut foam tape off from the front side. So then I'll stick down our little kitty cat. And I paused to sort out my sentiment situation because I wasn't quite sure. But I do have the sentiment up on a block ready to go. And I probably pressed a little too long because the A and take, kind of the hole in it gets eaten and it just becomes one. But that is the card and I like how it turned out. So thank you for watching and I will see you guys tomorrow for another video. Bye.